Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and welcome to Jambareeqi Sandwich, the film and animation themed variety show podcast. Joining me, after going through many technical difficulties, is my co-host, Viva Becker.
Yes, hello, we made it. 40 minutes later, but I'm here and I'm ready to go.
Right, so what have you been watching, Viva, since we last spoke?
I just came off of Ford v Ferrari. That's very fresh in my mind. I just finished watching that. It was an experience. I liked it okay. I watched Good Time recently. Good Time from the brothers Safdie. I think that's how you say their names. If people don't know what I'm talking about, they just released Uncut Gems and Good Time. I think was their last movie, and it's very similar.
Which would you say is the better film?
I enjoyed watching Uncut Gems a little bit better. It was just a little bit more engaging for me.
Do you know why?
I think it's because the lead characters were just more charming and more engaging. I mean, both of the movies follow really terrible people doing terrible things and slowly inching towards their karmic punishment, I guess. But Adam Sandler just pulled it off so much better than Robert Pattinson.
I've mainly been watching anime more than anything, to be honest. I've not really had much time for watching films. There's a lot of films I want to sit down and actually watch.
For those of you who don't know, Food Wars is a show set in a strict cooking school, which has been taken over by a villainous regime called Central. It centers on a team of rebel students led by the eccentric Soma and the god-tongued Erina, who are challenging the Elite Seat members, each of which side with Central by facing them in a tournament of cook-offs called Shokugekis.
Yes, I have seen Food Wars as well. I've not seen the new season, but I've seen up to that one.
I really enjoy Food Wars. I get a lot out of it. It's just so fun.
It is.
It's over-dramatic, but so sincere about how over-the-top it is, and embraces what it is. No shame whatsoever.
Decent taste with the fan service. Famous for its fan service, but better taste because they actually, cover things up. They know where to draw the line. It's a joke. You can tell in Food Wars it's supposed to be a joke, so it doesn't get to that really awkward, this is creepy kind of thing.
What I really liked about season 4 was that it definitely felt like everything had built up to this point. It's not the last season. That's going to be the 5th season that comes out next month. But with this one, it really does feel like everything has culminated to this. Ever since the first episode, even, I would say. No, not that. Ever since the students started. Ever since the students started, they have grown. They have improved. They have gotten to a point where they are not so much as good as the Elite 10, but still have a chance. And that's what's so gripping about it. And you don't know if they're going to take down Central. You have no idea, because there are rebels that do lose, but there are rebels that do win. It's not a constant kind of like, oh, we're gonna lose, this is all over. It's an up and down emotional roller coaster. You have no idea what's going to happen. And once again, the food looks friggin' amazing. Never watch Food Wars without food, unless you're a complete psycho.
Yes, I eat food every time I watch Food Wars.
I have to. I'm going to get so fat because I marathoned the entire season. I was like, I need food for every episode. or stop and I'll go to the shop just to find something that slightly resembles what they're eating.
Have you attempted any of the recipes?
No, but I'd like to. I'd love to.
I was watching season 2. I think this was in 3 o'clock in the morning. I saw it was the episode where he does the rice thing, but he makes it so you can keep eating it. It's refreshing because he puts the like the jam in it. I went upstairs. I made some rice. It was brown rice because that's all I had. And I put some canned pineapple in it. It was terrible, but I attempted the recipe.
I'll definitely give one a go, but I do feel intimidated at the same time because a lot of these recipes are created by characters who are like top tier chefs. So I'm like, I don't think it's going to be as good.
Yeah, well, even if it's not as good, you still feel good. I mean, all I did was empty a can of pineapple into some rice, and I was like, yeah, call me Soma.
What else I liked about season 4 is that it's the biggest step forward, and it's everything we've wanted to happen since Central took over. I'm not going to spoil anything, but let's just say that everything you've wished for, it's possible. Because the thing is, the character that's in charge of Central is the most despicable and arrogant character I've ever seen in anime, one of, and every time he's on screen he's just so slimy, and I'm like, oh, just somebody knock him down from his pedestal now.
Here's what I like about the Central storyline. Is the earlier arcs, it didn't really make sense to me why this school was conducting their lessons in this way, because they weren't really teaching them anything. They were just weeding people out. And I'm like, how are they supposed to get better at cooking if you never actually teach them? You just expel people. With the Central storyline, it makes sense because they're not trying to teach them. They're trying to weed them out because they don't have the same ideals around cooking. So I like that better, that they're actually struggling for a reason. And it makes sense that they would be doing all these high-stakes competitions, not just like, your class is this competition, and if you fail the class, you're expelled.
Yeah, well, that's another thing I really like about the Central plotline, is that everyone that we've been watching, well, most people we've been following, are now teaming up, banding together, and there's a great sense of camaraderie. And they believe in something that's worth supporting. This idea that cooking could be experimental and fun, and their enemies believe, no, it's got to be traditional, you've got to go by the book.
And these rebel students do an amazing job supporting each other, on and off stage, whether they're cheering in the sidelines or contributing an ingredient to a teammate. I especially love that when one rebel got knocked out of the tournament, another rebel dedicated their meal's name to their fallen comrade, really cementing the unity between these defiant students.
And what's really funny is that it gets to a point where Erin and Soma are up against each other, and we all know that they can't stand each other, but at the same time they kind of respect each other, so they're always down each other's throats, and you're thinking, how are they going to work as a team? And they find a really creative way that also raises the stakes to like 1 million. Yeah, I just had a lot of fun, and I feel like the way season 4 ended, I was like, this is really wholesome, but at the same time opens up season 5. Anyway, let's now move on to the news. So the first thing we're going to discuss is Spielberg dropping out of Indiana Jones 5, and director James Mangold, who was behind Logan, is in talks to direct. How do you feel about this news? I'm not sure how you feel about the Indiana Jones franchise in general, so go ahead.
Well, what was the projection looking like for Indiana Jones 5 itself? Like, what kind of story were they even going for? Because I don't know what they were even going to do with Indiana Jones 5.
I'm not sure either, because like I've had a look around and no one's really said anything, and like Harrison Ford is saying like, yeah, I'm making it. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, what are they? I mean, Indiana Jones is, what are they going to do? Drag around the corpse of Harrison Ford?
God.
Because that sounds like Logan. That sounds like Logan to me. So, it's a concept. Old guy. used to be an adventurer, and now he's withered.
That's the thing. I watched Logan today before doing this podcast to get an idea of what James Mangold's direction and style was like, and kind of get an idea of why he was chosen as, well, considered, because at this point it's just in talk. And after watching it, not only do I think that Logan's like a well-made piece of drama that deconstructs the superhero genre, but it also has a lot in common with the Indiana Jones franchise when you think about it. I mean, taking on a corrupt underground cult or organization is a staple of most indie movies. It has the same exploited children needing to be rescued plot as Temple of Doom, and the whole dysfunctional father and child aspect is slightly reminiscent of Indy and His Dad and Last Crusade. So I can see something there. You can tell the studio made connections. I wouldn't say that Mangold was chosen out of left field, or just because Logan made a lot of money, although that would have been a major deciding factor.
I would say, though, that in terms of his filmmaking style and the just emotional journey of the types of films that he makes, I wouldn't really say that it says Indiana Jones to me. I really feel like he was chosen just on the strength of Logan, and people are thinking, oh, there's a lot in common with Indiana Jones now being this old guy. Logan is this old guy. Let's get this guy who does old guy films. But again, not knowing what the journey of Indiana Jones 5 is supposed to be, I'm not scared of the franchise taking a different kind of direction in terms of filmmaking style or storytelling, just because I did not grow up with the Indiana Jones films. I don't have a really strong nostalgic connection to the style of the first films, and I really think that for some of those older properties, it can really breathe new life into them to do something a little different and examine the material in a different way.
Totally. And I think it's really important for people to realize that Spielberg left the project himself. He made that decision. He believed in a younger perspective in order to keep the franchise alive, and he's still on board as producer, so he's not completely jumped the ship. I'm only saying this because it's vital that people don't act over dramatic about this news or come up with wild conspiracies behind Spielberg leaving. However, I know that fans are already calling for a cancellation. Yes, they're already starting the petitions, which is quite silly, because it not only goes completely against Spielberg's wishes, but just comes off as closed-minded fan entitlement.
Well, you know, people are kind of scared about the things that they really love being handed off to someone else. But I think that just because something is new and it seems like it's going to be taking the franchise in a new direction doesn't necessarily mean you should be scared of it. It could spell disaster, but it could also spell like a new dawn, a new era.
And that's the kind of confidence we need to encourage with film studios in general, because they're scared of taking chances. So if the audience reflects that same fear, they're going to be attached to that feeling. So we need to keep telling them, okay, you're gonna do this, go for it. It sounds a bit wild, it sounds a bit risky, it's not what we're used to, but let's experiment, let's give it a go.
Yes, and we've seen what happens when fan backlash and just fans being super stuck on the way a franchise used to be and like how that destroys the future of the franchise in the Star Wars movies. Like that whole mentality just like it destroyed the Star Wars movies.
You were saying as well, like how, going back to the slight concern, that Logan's filmmaking style might not be appropriate. Well, is quite inappropriate for Indiana Jones. I will admit that, like, yeah, I'm kind of a little worried at the same time. Like, do we want an Indiana Jones movie that leans heavily into Indy being a sad old man? It worked for Wolverine, but it may be wrong for an indie movie, especially when people go for fun and adventure. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, will they give an R rating just to replicate Logan's success, these are my worries.
Yes.
While I do think Mangold is a good choice in terms of theme, I know what studios are like and how much they rely on banking on repeating box office smashes by doing the exact same thing again. They need to take the essence of Logan and translate it into something family friendly, has a sense of humor, while keeping in spirit with the whole mythos and appeal of the Indiana Jones legacy.
Mm-hmm. And I think capturing some of that really unbridled, like crazy, fun, whimsical, old school Indiana Jones adventure is going to be kind of a challenge for Mangold, because you just said you came off watching Logan. I just came off watching Ford v Ferrari, which is Mangold's most recent film. And those, as well as some of the other notable films in his filmography, they have triumphant moments, but it's tempered. He does excitement and triumph and emotion, but the emotion is never as purely like fun and unbridled as it has been before.
That's something I will say about Logan, is that the last word I'd use for it is uplifting.
Yeah.
And Indiana Jones can go to some dark places, I won't lie. It's gone to some areas where I feel like, right, is this even suitable for kids? But they use that bleakness for fun scares, for exciting scares, not for any kind of cynicism about society or to make us feel miserable, but to just enhance the action and the adventure, to really add to the stakes. And we, especially when you look at not only the kill count in Logan, but like the ending to Logan, is that the bookend we want for Indiana Jones? Not really.
I mean, also the ending of Ford v Ferrari, is that the bookend that we want for Indiana Jones?
Can you explain what that ending is like without giving too much away?
It's an ending that has all of the wonderful emotion in it, but you are never allowed to forget that this story is rooted in the real world, and all of the real world inequalities stay, and it doesn't end in a way that you would expect, like a fair way to the main protagonists. They win, but it's very, very bitter. It's a very bittersweet kind of win. It's an emotional only kind of win.
That does sound a bit like Logan's ending, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
It's a mix of like, things are gonna get better, but oh crap, things have gone bad. It's a mix, and like, I'm uncertain if that fits Indiana Jones, because it's concocted by Spielberg, who is renowned for his whimsy and his uplifting nature. He has made things like Schindler's List and stuff like that, so he's willing to go to those places, but never with some things like Indiana Jones, which was inspired by adventure serials he'd watch as a kid. So yeah, I have mixed feelings overall. Open-minded as all hell. Like, it's a risky decision, but like, I applaud that kind of gumption, really, when it comes, especially with a major franchise.
And I don't want to say that the guy can only do what he's ever done before. You know, people can do new things.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
But at the same time, the reactions we've had to the films of his we've seen definitely gives us an idea of his style, of his pattern. So I feel like they do have the right to feel slightly kind of like, you sound a bit down, James. Can you make Indy happy, please? So I get the concern, but let's have a little bit of faith, especially when it comes to risk, and not jump straight into panic mode and start petitions to cancel it. Let's give it a go. Let's see how it happens. If it fails, it fails, but at least the attempt was made. There's such an... And while I understand the attachment to all these franchises and the love for these franchises, the more we stick to what's the norm, what's comfortable, what we expect, the less risk will be taken.
How much do you want to bet that Indiana Jones does not make it out of Indiana Jones 5?
Oh, he's gonna... Yeah, 100% he's gonna die. He's gonna get killed off. I know it. And the media's already talking about it. It's obviously going to happen.
I just want it to be in a really, like... I think Indiana Jones deserves something that's, like, wild and awesome. He goes out with a bang. It's goofy as hell,
Yes.
but it's such, like, a culmination. I just don't want him to be dragged down too much by real life. I don't want to see Indiana Jones in diapers withering away at the old folks' home.
I was thinking that ever since I've been thinking about the entire premises, it's going to be set in an old folks' home. It's going to be in a retirement home, even if it's just for the opening scene.
Please.
It's got to be. Okay, so yeah, those are our thoughts on this new announcement. The other thing we're going to discuss is a new animated film that's being announced. It's a collaboration between WWE Studios and Paramount Animation. It's a monster wrestling movie called Rumble. So, what are your thoughts, Viva?
I mean, WWE Studios have not exactly had an amazing legacy in terms of their family-friendly entertainment. But we'll see, I guess.
The thing with WWE, especially when it comes to animation, is that a lot of their stuff has been straight to video. The only mainstream theatrical release I can think of is Fighting with the Family, and I've not seen that, but most critics are like, meh, it's okay. Which is better than looks terrible, or it's terrible. But still, it's hard to kind of be like, oh, WWE Studios, the studios that made those Hanna-Barbera crossover movies. Oh boy, I wonder what they're going to make.
Didn't they make that penguin surfing movie too?
Yes, they made Surf's Up 2 as well. That's another worry I have, is that they seem, when it comes to animation, they seem to only have experience in using other people's franchises and crossing them over with their wrestler personas. That's all they've ever done. And seeing that now they're doing an original story, it's like, ooh, can you do this without all your famous wrestler personas at the side, or without any established canon to work with? Can you do this? I'm not saying they can't, but it's quite a leap. It's definitely a leap to go from something like Flintstone Stone Age SmackDown to this.
But to be fair, if there's any type of story that the WWE is going to be able to pull off, it's the pitched story for Rumble.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they're not pushing it in terms of story. Like, with their real life wrestlers, this is the story that they use. So they have practice doing this story.
It's very much the Rocky formula, I've noticed, though. You know, like the underdog being trained to compete with professionals or become a star, which is a very, very common plot line in a lot of animated films, like Hercules, Turbo, Kung Fu Panda, Surf's Up. And yes, repeating a movie's template doesn't automatically make it bad, because it's all in the execution, but I can't really get excited when we're being presented with something that's not exactly new grounds for animated features, and the industry has already been criticized, especially in mainstream Hollywood, for not taking risks. We have monster wrestling. That's a unique idea. That's a fun idea. But I hope that the movie doesn't depend entirely on that premise for it to be special, and doesn't become swamped with the cliches of the underdog athlete story.
What I really hope, I'm not sure if they're going to do this or not, but something that would really not be too reaching for them is if they actually focused on them being monsters, like if they actually bring it up in the movie, because a lot of times I see these kids movies where they're all animals or they're all monsters or something, and it's never brought up. And it's like,
Yeah.
why make them monsters then? You know?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that would be really good if they embraced that angle, especially the relationship between humans and monsters. And I do get the impression that's going to be a part of the film, so I'm interested in that.
I want to see what they do. I want to see how they can push the limits of their wrestling with the different monsters.
Oh, totally, yeah. The idea is great. The premise is fine. I just can't say story-wise, this sounds awesome. This sounds like they've really brainstormed hard about this. It's a gimmick, and it could pay off as an entertaining film, but I can't say that, like, yeah, this is going to put WWE Studios on the map, or this is going to help Paramount's animation studio compete with the likes of Pixar, DreamWorks, and so forth. But again, this is just a teaser. There could be more to what's going on, so I'm keeping an open mind. It's just based on what we've given and what WWE Studios have produced before. It is very tough for me to get that hyped up. I'm not dreading it. I'm most likely going to have to see it at the cinemas, and I won't be like, oh. I'll be like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I think it'll be at least middling. I don't think they're going to turn out something that's really, really schlocky, because it sounds like they see an opportunity. They see how former wrestling stars are like really succeeding in kids entertainment, and they see a chance to expand their audience. And I just don't think that they're gonna try and glide by on this. I think that they will at least try to make it good. And whether or not they can do that, whether or not they have the real like artistic, passion for the story or whatever to elevate it to something good, we'll see. But I don't think it's going to be super, super schlocky. Like, they don't care at all.
Oh yeah, I'm not getting bad movie vibes, but I am getting average movie vibes.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting this is probably going to be a film that comes and goes. No one's really going to hate it, but people aren't going to love it either. But I've been surprised. I've been surprised a lot, especially recently. I did not expect Angry Birds Movie 2 to be one of the funniest animated films I would see last year. And there was another film I saw recently, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I was expecting that to be absolutely terrible, and it was fine. So I'm open to being surprised, and I want to be surprised. I don't like coming out of a film feeling disappointed. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. My only real issue is, and I know this is something you'll probably be passionate about as well as a voice actress, I do get the feeling that Will Arnett is oversaturating animated films lately. And he has a great voice, but he's not exactly renowned for his range. And the more animated films he's in, the less special his voice is gonna sound. And yeah, how do you feel about that?
I personally, I understand that for these animated films to be funded, a lot of times they need those celebrity voices. From an artistic standpoint, I think that the vast, vast majority of celebrity voiceovers are a waste of money, in terms of your budget. Not considering how much money they bring in for the budget of the film itself. If you were just assuming, it's already funded, this is the money we have, we're going to hire whoever, I think it's a waste of money, because it's not very often that you can even tell that it's a celebrity voice. And when you can, it's very obvious. It kind of takes you out of the character.
And a lot of the time we're also trying to work out, which celebrity is that? So yeah, and any other thoughts on this announcement?
We'll see. I hope it's good.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
Now it's trivia time. Comedy actor Bill Murray, best known for such movies as Ghostbusters, Groundhog Day, and Caddyshack, was actually attached to play Batman in the 1989 movie adaptation. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, uses the F-word a total of 199 times. British rock band The Beatles were actually considered for the voice roles of the barbershop singing vultures in The Jungle Book. The final battle sequence in Avengers Endgame required about 1,400 computer artists, and they completed the epic showdown's visual effects under 16 weeks. There are animated shorts that are exclusive to the Studio Ghibli Museum, including May and the Kitten Bus, Mon Mon the Water Spider, The Whale Hunt, and many more. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was originally going to be called Teeny Weenies, but that title was scrapped because Disney wanted the film to appeal to audiences of all ages, not just little kids. For his iconic role of Harry Potter, actor Daniel Radcliffe tried on over 160 pairs of glasses until filmmakers were happy. When E.T. was released on VHS, it was made from green plastic, to help consumers know that they had bought a genuine copy and not a pirate bootleg. In Star Wars The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon Jinn's communicator is in fact a repurposed Gillette Ladies Sensor XL razor. Actress Mercedes McCambridge, the voice of Pazuzu in The Exorcist, actually chugged down raw eggs, chain-smoked, and knocked back whiskey to make her voice sound authentically demonic. Right, now it's time for Cartoon Shake!
Right, so recently there has been the release of the new CGI remake of Pokemon the first movie, so I thought we would talk about the short film that preceded the original first movie of Pokemon, Pikachu's Vacation.
In this short, Ash and his friends drop their Pokemon off at a vacation resort. While on their holiday, Pikachu and co end up developing a rivalry with a gang led by Raichu, and they start having competitions against each other. However, when Charizard gets himself trapped, everyone must put aside their differences and work together to save him.
Okay, so first of all, Viva, how knowledgeable are you about Pokemon? Like, what does Pokemon mean to you?
I am not knowledgeable at all. I have seen one episode of the show, and I've played the game for a total time of maybe 2 hours. That's it.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So we've got someone that's... Would you just class yourself as kind of casual then, maybe? Or
I wouldn't even say casual. I would feel bad claiming casual. I mean, I recognize the names of the Pokemon and the designs, and I understand what the basic story is, but...
So you would say you're more of an outsider?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. This will be interesting because, as many of my fans already know, I'm quite big into Pokemon, but not to the point where I'm obsessed. Like, I kind of dip in and out of it. I've not played the game since I think it was Sapphire version. It's been a very long time since I played the games. It's been a very long time since I played games in general. But I've often watched the series and I've often watched the films because they're animation, and animation's one of my bigger passions compared to video games. So I've sometimes come back to it. I would say, if I was to class myself as a fan, I'd say casual, definitely casual. Sometimes I even need to turn to other people to get an idea of the names of Pokemon or stuff I've missed. So I'm not that knowledgeable, but I know the gist of it, and I can name a lot more Pokemon than most casuals. So, what did you think of Pikachu's Vacation as someone that's like an outsider to this franchise?
Well, first impression, where was the vacation? 20-minute long short. No vacation. The vacation doesn't happen until literally the last 3 seconds. And as soon as the vacation starts, Ash shows up and is like, "Oh, Pikachu, time to go." What vacation? What vacation? There was no vacation. I was promised Pikachu on vacation. I did not get that.
So would you have liked to have seen 20 minutes of Pokemon relaxing?
I would have liked to see a 20-minute story that had some sort of direction and momentum behind it instead of the 20-minute meandering whatever the short was.
It's mainly centered on the two parties of Pokemon trying to compete with each other, trying to go against each other, trying to prove themselves. And then eventually when Charizard gets in danger, that's when they realize, okay, let's have some humanity, let's actually care about what's happening, and we can't solve this unless we work together. It's very much a teamwork moral.
The teamwork moral and the whole story really... it would have been better if they focused more on clearly telling the story. And I understand it's a challenge because none of the Pokemon can talk, but the story was just very, I feel like, poorly conveyed.
Right, okay. I guess I have the thing is I have a lot of nostalgia for this, and I ended up watching it countless times as a kid, so nothing that much bugs me about it or confuses me.
What stood out to me was that the conflict should not have happened in the first place. Like, it was a shallow conflict with no real motivator. I mean, it felt to me like it started because the filmmakers wanted there to be a conflict that they could solve. The two parties kind of meet, and the whole conflict gets started because Pikachu tells them tells the other group to not be as loud, and that's it.
I think one thing that did kind of bug me was that Pokedex was not a great narrator. He's not exactly got a charismatic voice. It sounds like Microsoft Sam on helium. Plus, a lot of what he has to say is unnecessary, or could have easily been told through the visuals. But I appreciate that he's not used excessively. He could have been constantly saying, translated to, all the way through. He could have been far more annoying. He could have just translated every single thing and commented on every single thing. But to an extent, he's somewhat downplayed, so I did appreciate that. I'm not sure what it's like in the Japanese dub. I can't remember if Pokedex talks or not. But in the 4Kids dub, yeah, he does.
Yeah. I wish the Pokedex would have explained why this vacation resort for Pokemon only has one apple for food. You would think that food would be an important thing to have at a resort location. No, there's only one apple.
What I noticed the most when rewatching this was there's no staff. There's no human staff anywhere.
The Pokemon are in danger. There's no food, no staff. They just dropped them off in a field, basically. They're like, here's your vacation.
There's nothing about this place that seems like it's a business, but it's presented like one. It's really confusing. Mm-hmm. And like, it's a lawsuit waiting to happen half the time. Mm-hmm. Especially if you put certain Pokemon next to each other, they're in danger of hurting the other Pokemon. Mm-hmm. And you've got Pokemon like Charizard sharing the same space as like all the cutesy Pokemon at the same time. And I don't know who is in charge. I don't know what this place is meant to kind of represent or be. It's kind of confusing.
Even Charizard is in danger in the...
Okay, so I'd say this is mainly as a Pokemon fan. Charizard being trapped and crying is considered like one of the saddest moments in Pokemon ever. And I will admit that, like, yeah, it kind of is. I do kind of feel sorry for him. Like, he's usually this tough-skinned dragon who takes no shit, and seeing him shed a tear is kind of like, oh shit, this is bad. There's some things I really want to know your thought from. So this short is infamous for its trippy as all hell bumpers, where it'll cut to Pokemon in like psychedelic backgrounds saying their names reverbed, and it's the weirdest shit. Even Pokemon fans are like, what? It's just a weird way to kind of like split each scene up, and sometimes it interrupts a scene. Like it can sort of work as a bumper, but sometimes it's like it'll interrupt the race between Raichu and Pikachu, and you're like, why is that there? It's almost haunting. So how do you feel about that as an outsider?
I wasn't sure if that was an every episode kind of thing.
No.
I just figured it
No.
was filler. They wanted to stretch it, and they needed a couple extra minutes, and that was a really cheap way for them to do it.
I both dislike it because it's pointless, and love it because it's so strange.
I will say those were the only parts that I actually liked watching. So
it's because it's so hypnotic, and like it takes you so far out of what you're currently watching. You're seeing this cute slice of life story with these furry creatures, and then it'll stop and it'll have like a bunch of water Pokemon floating, and then Magikarp floats up to the camera and you're like, what? or you have a Slowpoke just going, and that's it. It is one of the most memorable things about this short. I don't mind the short. It's fine. I've seen much worse, but again, this is most likely nostalgia talking. Mm-hmm. At the same time, nostalgia has not saved me from the bad Pokemon movies. Like, that wasn't enough to for me to forgive them. But I don't know why for this one. It may be because it's just so okay that I don't mind. There's been worse Pokemon related things out there, so I'm like, it's okay.
I wouldn't recommend the short to anyone. I thought the plot had really weak motivation. I thought the storytelling was not very good. And overall, I thought it was kind of meandering and not very engaging.
Right. That's the thing as well, is that it's a lot easier to look over certain things with this short if you're really into Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit that. Like, it can be, because Pokemon fans are so used to seeing it so centered on the humans, this is kind of a novelty. Like, the show is almost like stopping, and like it never shows the things from the human's perspective either. Like when we see Ash at the end, it's from Pikachu's perspective. So again, I would say it's very much for Pokemon fans more than anything, which will certainly alienate it as a piece of media. Time for the show to come to a close, as me and Viva have a final showdown in a mega challenge.
Mega Challenge!
In this episode's Mega Challenge, we're going to be playing a game called Film Connections. Let me explain. Each player is given 2 famous movie stars' names. Said player must then link them both together based on the films they've been in, all under a timer limit of 1 minute. So, I'll go first. Will Smith to James Woods, okay. Will Smith was in Wild Wild West, and that co-starred Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline was in The Road to El Dorado. How the f*** am I gonna get to what's in El Dorado, which co-starred Jim Cummings. Now we're gonna open up a lot of things. Jim Cummings was in Hercules. Hercules starred James Woods.
Hey! Oh, there were some good
Hercules
movies in there. Road to El Dorado, quality movie right there. Quality movie.
Now it's Viva's turn.
I just don't know what Henry Cavill has been in besides Superman. Oh, okay, I got it. Jennifer Aniston, Marley and Me to Owen Wilson, and Owen Wilson to... Actually, you know what? Never mind. I think you got that. I don't really... Just take the point.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Jambareeqi Sandwich. It's been a blast to record. I've been Jambareeqi. My voice went really high just then.
You do the end thing again. I gotta psych myself up for this shit again.
It's okay. I've been Jambareeqi, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast.
And I've been Viva Becker, and Jambareeqi's a cheater.
Yeah. I used IMDb the whole time. Yeah. Cheerio, folks.